Hello, hi everyone. My name is Stella Wedera. Welcome to the afternoon session of design and to the Africa STEM Summit Day 2 as well. We have our speaker here today, Joseph Chira, and he's going to take us through the key principles of UI and UX design. The Africa STEM Summit is a 3-day event, and the main point of the summit is to expose, inspire, and mentor individuals with technical skills in sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So, without further ado, I will hand over the mic to Joseph Chira. Hi, Joseph.
Hi, Stella. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. So, as Stella has mentioned, I will be talking about the key principles of UI UX design, but I've decided to reframe it as a roadmap for junior designers because I think that's the age group that we're um, talking to today. So, hoping that my mic is audible and everything is set, I will start off by introducing the key topics that we'll be covering. So, after the introduction, definitely we'll go to understanding what UI and UX is and the role that it plays in product development and design, and some of the key principles of UI UX that I've come to use and generally used in the market, and understanding what user needs are, because those are the most important factors that guide user experience design. And there are methodologies. I'll touch two methodologies. That's design thinking and human-centered design. And then we'll get into the roles that UI UX plays in, and also how one can build a portfolio, and also how one can stay a bit in the market with the skill set of UI UX design. So in a nutshell, as I mentioned, my name is Joseph Chira. I am a senior user experience designer and a product design strategy consultant. I've had over 6 years of experience in the field, and I specialize a lot on enhancing experiences within customer experiences within the mobile money and e-commerce platforms. So that's around fintech. And I usually use the human-centered design principles. And in the last couple of, say 6 months ago, I started using the AI-powered solutions. And I've had the pleasure of working with most of the leading industries, both regionally in Kenya and globally. So currently, I'm working with AG Nexus. Last year, I was working with Vodacom, and previously, before that, I was at Trigger Foods. I'm really excited to at least share my personal experience and the journey, and also to help you understand and master, and also at least inspire you to pursue UI UX design fully. So, of course, the first question that we usually ask ourselves is, what exactly is user interface or user experience design? Most of the people usually confuse the two, especially in the market. When you're looking for new roles, you find roles saying that they need a UI UX designer and they need a UX designer. So it's really good to understand the difference between the two. So when we talk about user interface design, we basically just talk about the interface, at which point a user interacts, the connecting point where a user interacts with a product or a service. So here's where you find visual elements of a product, such as buttons, icons, things to do with spacing, typography, basically just the look and feel of a product or any interface that the user is interacting with. But now, on the other hand, when you talk about user experience, we're just focusing on the overall experience of a user when they enter into a platform or when they start interacting with the product or service, to the end point. So the entire journey, what motivates them to move to the next step of, for example, a mobile application, and the things that the touch points that they usually interact with, it might be features, buttons, and things like that. How user friendly is your platform, and is it easy to use? Is it enjoyable? Is it efficient? Is it doing what is it supposed to do? So those are some of the things that probably, as someone who's aspiring to focus to go into UI UX, these are some of the things that you should keep in mind as you start. So in a nutshell, visually UI, it's what to make, the elements, as I said, what is desirable to the user. And it also focuses on the tools that you use to design. Maybe a laptop, maybe software. So like maybe a platform whereby you, for example, things like Figma, the visual elements that you use to design the interface is what now we do. We call it user interface. And when you talk about user experience, it's like, what do you want to achieve as a user? How is your experience? How credible is the platform? And as I mentioned earlier, it focuses a lot on the interactions of a service or a product. So in the most simplistic way that I could find to illustrate good and bad UI is the first, as you can see from the window on the left, has very few. So essentially you need to keep it simple, have everything placed in order, follow the laws of UX, makes things clear for the user when they're interacting with your window or your product or your interface. And then bad UI on the right, of course, sometimes you might find probably a client who wants everything to be displayed on one page. And it's, as UI UX designers, it's really, really important to advise clients on what is the best way forward when it comes to building products for them. And I chose to use this as a bad and good UX example. The other one was UI. This is UX example, because most of the designers don't follow something called text hierarchy. Now, if you look at the first screen on the left where we had the X, you'll find that all the typography and the fonts, they're all similar. So you can't really tell what's the difference. So the text is one of the most informational content and properly formatted. It facilitates users' perception of information. And one of the laws of UX is the law of similarity. So anything that is similar, anything that does a similar function, you try to at least make sure that it is uniform all through. So for instance, the name of the song has to have a similar font, the number of songs it has, the name of the album, sorry, the number of plays it has, the iconography has to be the same, the spacing and lettering has to be the same, the kerning, the blocking has to be the same. That's why you find that the second screen is very, very appealing. You can easily navigate and you can easily differentiate the information that is displayed. So as an example, text hierarchy is also very, very key when it comes to user experience. So under principles, I chose to highlight, I think, 4 key principles. That's the simplicity, consistency, clarity, and feedback. So when you talk about simplicity, a design should be intuitive and straightforward. That is, it should not be very difficult for a user to understand what is being displayed and understand how to navigate. It should be very easy and efficient. And that's why most of the time we talk about having a very simple design so that at least the user can be able to accomplish any task from start to finish without any distractions. And that's how you get to reduce the churn rate. That's the drop-off rate of a user. And it also reduces errors and also making the entire overall experience very, very efficient and pleasant for the user. The other key principle is consistency. Like I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about text and fonts, elements such as colors, typography, and layouts should be uniform across the product. So you do need to marry the two, the interface design and the experience design. Because now consistency now at least will ensure that the users will predict and understand the interface easily. There's another law called the law of familiarity. This is whereby if the features are consistent, the user will not have a hard time navigating across your platform or your product. The other thing is clarity. Of course, you should communicate information and actions easily through text, icons, and graphics. At least make it easy for the user to understand for the first time they see it and to the point whereby at least they leave your platform. This at least reduces confusion and cognitive load. Cognitive load is like having a lot of things to think about when you're interacting with the product. The other part is feedback. Now, when interacting with a product, definitely as interaction is whereby now you find things like you get a notification in case you have an error. So a system should provide at least feedback to inform users of what is happening, right? So in case you put a wrong password, at least it needs to give you feedback on what it is that you're doing, whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. At least, and also it reinforces a sense of control and assurance, and also build trust when it comes to your product for the users. Before I transition, I don't know whether there's any questions, or if not, probably we'll just proceed. So, from experience or as a principal, since we are dealing with products that users need, we need to basically understand what are their needs, what are some of the challenges that they are going through. So one of the things that we usually do, very, very important, is to conduct user research. So it is crucial as a designer to know how to empathize with users and also understand what are the needs of the users when it comes to dealing with products, what motivates them to probably download your product, what are some of the behaviors and pain points that your target audience is facing. So when you do that, you'll be able to gather data, and now from that data you generate insights from the users, which now enable you to have actionable insights or things we call opportunity areas that at least are truly user-centric, and they meet the demands of the end users. And examples that we usually use to conduct user research, definitely interviews. These are now one-on-one discussions. Other interviews include focus groups. This is whereby you talk to a group of people. There's another method called immersion, which is still part of the interviews. This is where you immerse yourself in the field and you get to have a one-on-one conversation with a participant who meets the criteria of the target audience. The other one, which is now, of course, when it comes to research, we do have two major methods, that is qualitative and quantitative. So surveys give you quantitative data, whereas things like interviews give qualitative data. Other things include observation, like watching user interact with the product in the environment. So these where now we do a lot of A/B testing, usability testing, and in case they have a problem interacting with the product, you get to now pick that as an insight, and you try to improve probably a challenge that you're facing. So like I mentioned earlier, we have focus groups, group discussions for diverse feedback, discussing features, example, discussing feature on a new health tracking app with potential users. This hereby you'll get to hear from different different focus groups. But at times it usually is not really advisable at times to. I personally don't do a lot of focus group because they inflict some sort of biasness, and when someone when you're in a group, there's a way that you have that may, mob psychological kind of thinking, and I prefer to probably do a lot of observation, usability testing, and contextual inquiry. This now where I go to the field in the user's environment and empathize, and I study them as they do their work, as they live their life, and as they use probably the tools or the solutions that you're trying to build. Two methodologies, as I mentioned earlier. We have design thinking and human-centered design. So what is design thinking? Most people confuse the two because they have a lot of similarities. Design thinking has 5 main stages. That's empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. So it encourages the innovation solutions through a deep understanding of users' needs and iterative prototyping and collaboration and experimentation. So we can find that in the first stage, under emphasizing, you do a lot of shadowing, you do a lot of understanding what the user is going through, and you try to avoid as much as possible not to be biased. And then defining now, based on the data collected, you do create personas, you do get to look at the challenges, you get to look at the pain points, and define this. So this is like a problem definition stage or a reframing stage, and you also scope out the entire project based on the data collected. Ideation now, after collecting all the data, you come up and synthesize, and you look at which of the insights are you going to focus on. So here you share ideas with your team, and like as you can see, which ideas are worthy, and then you can use the divergent convergent method. And there's something called a yes and. So yeah, after finding the research, what else are you going to do? So this is a yes, and then what else? What are you going to prioritize? So after that, you start doing things like mockups, storyboards, making things as simple as possible, and you do a lot of iteration. That's why you can see they fail fast. So whatever is not working, you go back and iterate it. After the team agrees of the fidelity, the prototypes that you guys have done, you now go ahead and try to test it out with the market. What works? If it doesn't work, since this is an iterative approach, you go back and redesign it again, test it out with the market, and design. So now, when you talk about human-centered design, the user is like the center of everything at every stage of the design process. The user is the heart of the design process because now we seek to deeply understand the user needs, behaviors, and experiences to create effective solutions catering to their unique challenges and desire. So for these stages, for the stages in this methodology, you have the inspiration, ideation, and implementation. As you can see, you ask yourself, I have a design challenge. Okay, so how do I get started? How do I conduct interviews? So since you want to talk to users, are you going to talk to them? How are you going to remain um, human centered? Is it going to be user centric or not? But you have to ensure that you don't diverge away from that. If now you collect the data, you come and ask yourself what you've learned, and like I mentioned earlier, you turn those insights into tangible, actionable insights, and then you make a prototype. It can be a lo-fi, or it can be a high fidelity prototype. You test it out with the user. Is it innovative enough? Now you ask yourself how you can convert it to real concepts and assess if it's working, and then plan for sustainability. Sustainability now is whereby after it's launched, you do like a post-launch research, ensuring that you still have the users in mind. Now, the major difference between the two, I know some of you are asking yourselves because there's a lot of similarities at the same time, is one, time of use. Design thinking begins at the early stage of product development, whereas human-centered design comes during and after product development, with the aim of fine-tuning the products into a solution that users love. And the focus point for the other difference is the key focus area. Human-centered design, HCD, most of the time focuses on the emotional engagement of the user as well. Design thinking combines this with technicality and feasibility. This is whereby you engage a lot of stakeholders, and you look at how, if you have the technical feasibility, technical competencies and feasibility to develop your product. Levels of clarity, design thinking is made up of assumptions, a lot of assumptions that you usually go to the field to validate. Whereas human-centered design is based on real data from users. So from the data you collect is the one that informs the approach and the solution that you're going to generate. Whereas design thinking, on the other hand, is mostly assumptions that you need to validate, and probably usually do hypotheses and hypotheses, validate these assumptions. And the other difference, as you can see, is the aim where design thinking encourages innovative solution. Human-centered design prioritizes good usability and overall general user experience. Great general user experience. The other part is process. So design thinking process is experimental. Human-centered design is based on user feedback. Experimental is the sense of where now we talked about assumptions. So we try to go to the field, experiment, and see whether the assumptions can be validated or not. Human-centered design, we talk to users first, and then we use the feedback generated to help us in developing very good solutions that the users will need. Now I'll transition to one very important part, and that's now the roles that we as user experience designers can have in this field. Currently, there's a lot going on in the UX field. Unlike 2 years ago, where we were really sought after in the market, nowadays the UX role has been diversified, and there's a lot of specialization that is happening. So, of course, if you see a role advertising, a UX role being advertised, it's very, very important to look at the job description. For instance, now as you can see here, we have several roles. You have a UI designer. As much as it's a role that falls within UX. But this one now focuses on visual design, on creating the interfaces. You can choose to go, if you're good at graphic design, if you're good at understanding colors, If you're good at doing fonts, you can specialize on designing user interfaces, which is still part of a role within UX. And the most of the tools that you usually use, Sketch is no longer there, but you used to use Sketch, Figma, and some other very, very new tools that have popped up recently. But these were my go-to, like Adobe and stuff were my go-to tools. So on my end, I initially started as a UI designer. I was very good at graphic design, typography. I used to do a lot of UI design, but then I shifted my focus to user research. So I did a lot of user research for Vodacom and Trigger Foods. So now here is whereby we be focused on understanding what the behavior and needs of users are. So we did a lot of interviews, surveys, testing, data analysis using business intelligence, using Google Analytics. And now we took this information and informed now people that the UI designers and the UX designers and the product designers. So these skills, these roles, one can have multiple skill sets. Like personally, I have UX research, UX design, and product design skills. And it's really important right now to at least ensure that you have you have multiple skills that are within these roles. A UX architect is, just as the name suggests, is an architect. This is the person who sits at the forefront of structuring the overall experience. That is information architecture, the user mapping, system design. So information architecture is generally how you lay out your information on your platform. The user journey is like mapping out the overall user experience and user journey from the time a user lands on your product to the point where he leaves. And system design is things to do with iconography, type, color. So it's like a brand identity for graphic designers. But now this is on a very high level. This is very deep because it touches on everything from how notifications are going to be displayed, how text is going to be arranged, how buttons are going to interact, the instances, if it's hovering, if it's a push, how shadows are going to be like, if you're going to use containers. This is on a high level. So if you want to be like on the top tier of UX, you can you can learn as much as you can to be an UX architect. Product designer basically is someone who focuses on the end-to-end product design from concept to implementation. This is now someone who interprets what a researcher has brought, and because now a researcher works in tandem with a designer and they come up with wireframes and prototypes. Now product design takes that and uses the system design generated by the UX architect to design this, like the interface, the interactions, and things like that. So as you can see down here, the skills that they need is the UI UX, general UI UX, has to have a bit of product management skills, has to have a bit of user research because they need to interpret the data, and has to have a lot of prototyping skills because they're actually designing. That was very repeated a bit. So what I can say is UI UX design offers diverse career paths, which requiring specific skills and qualifications. So as I mentioned, my journey started from graphic design back like 10 years ago, and I've continuously learned and done a lot of practice in the field, at least to the level now as I can hold a title like a senior UX designer. And based on what's happening, you need to adapt to new challenges. You need to adapt and learn on the new emerging technologies, so that at least you can be able to stand out. And the skills needed for some of these roles, as I mentioned earlier, for UI designer, you need to have graphic design degree, proficiency in design tools, a very strong visual portfolio. For UX researcher, you need to have not necessarily a background in psychology, but you need to practice a lot of empathy. So you need to understand people, right? So, and then you also need to understand the human-computer interaction and some of the research methodologies that I talked about. For someone within the UX design, experience with wireframing and prototyping, you need to have a deep understanding of UX principles, the laws of UX. That is, knowing what to do, what to build for designers, how to interpret data collected in the field to a viable product. UX architect, of course, you need to be very strong when it comes to analysis and information architecture and system design. Product design versatile, so you can navigate across UI and UX, and also have a bit of knowledge when it comes to product development and product management. Since most of you are probably getting into the field of transitioning to the field of UX, one of the most important things that I've come to appreciate and understand is whatever project that you do, you need to find a way of structuring it into a case study. Because as much as you might have a CV, you need to tell a story when it comes to how you handle a project, how you took the project from the implementation, from the initial stage to implementation and to execution and release. So your portfolio should at least have 3 to 4 very, very good case studies whereby you detail your design process from research to final implementation. So, for example, you're planning a project where you design a mobile app. You included the research that you did, what informed your design process, what informed your design decisions, and how you came up with the wireframes to the point whereby you did a final design. So if you're starting up, you may not have an actual project, but there are sites whereby you can get projects that you can add to your portfolio. So it will guide you on how to probably build a case study. As I mentioned earlier, of course, you need to showcase a variety of projects, display a range of work to demonstrate your versatility and the skills across different industries such as e-commerce, finance, fintech, and healthcare. Right now, currently, I think most of the people are getting to edtech. So that's something you also need to think about. When I was starting up, we were doing a lot of fintech and healthcare. I've seen most of the roles being advertised currently, they're looking at people who are doing a lot of AI tools, assistant tools, and edtech. And then in each case study, one crucial thing you need to think about is what was your role and how you contributed to each project. So you list the tasks that you did. For example, if you conducted interviews, you list that. If you did a prototype, you need to highlight your role, so at least you can be able to show for example, a client or a hiring manager that indeed you have these necessary skills that are required in the job that is being advertised. Emphasis on results and impact. So include metrics and feedback to show that your product was indeed successful. For example, you mention how your design improvements increases engagement or reduced bounce rates. That is unfortunately with the ATS systems, when you're doing a CV, you don't just put down, for example, a conducted user research. You have to show metrics. You can say I talked to 20 people about a certain feature on an application, and out of the 20, 17 of them were able to easily understand and navigate. So, and that ended up reducing the churn, the drop-off rate of the application. So those are some of the things that are needed when it comes to showing results and impact. And then also in your portfolio, ensure that your portfolio is visually appealing and well organized. Use very simple and clean layouts, high-res images, and very concise description and captions to at least guide the person who's going through your portfolio on what exactly you did. And also make sure that you regularly update your projects and remove outdated ones. At least every month, every twice a month, because unfortunately for us designers, we rarely work on ourselves when it comes to portfolios, but it's something you just need to practice, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be worth at the end. So there are a couple of platforms that you can go to build your portfolio. Some are free, some are limited to a certain point, and then you end up paying. But these ones at least ensure that you have an online presence. So there's Canva, which at least now has AI. There's Adobe, has a bit of AI. Journal Portfolio, WordPress, which was one of the widely used platform even when I was starting. Carbon Made, Adobe Portfolio, Behance. Although right now I've come to realize that as much as it has online presence, there's some critics that are saying that at least it doesn't really show that you can build something because it's just a plug and play, just copy and drop. But now there's a new tool called Webflow, which I'm currently using. It's a very nice platform and allows you to create portfolio website. And the good thing it has is something called Webflow University. So it has educational tutorials. So it guides you as well, and you get to learn how to build websites on the go as you build your portfolio. As I mentioned, some of these might have free plans, which are very limited, but if you purchase them, they have other premium features which you cannot get on the free plan. So always check on the specific terms and conditions while you're purchasing it. So the importance of continuous learning is that UI UX is ever evolving, right? So you need to continuously learn as much as you can. And the continuous learning allows designers to stay abreast of the latest trends, technologies, and methodologies, ensuring that at least you remain relevant. Because trust me, people are learning right now. These young people who are coming up, and they're so eager to learn. They're way of they're adopting the new ways very very fast. Unlike us guys who were there before, the young people, you young people, you're coming up with new ways to at least execute tasks, which is very, very commendable. So always continue staying updated with the latest resources, blogs like Medium, Smash Magazine, NNG. NNG now focuses a lot on design thinking. IDEO focuses a lot on human-centered design. If you can't take online courses from Coursera, HPI, ALX, there's a lot of also Udemy, LinkedIn are learning as well in matters UI UX. If you can also attend conferences, because I come to appreciate these sessions when it comes to conferences, because you get to network with some of the leading industry professionals. Okay, so some of them are online, like the Adobe Max. There's the UX Kitchen in Kenya, UX Week, which happens globally. There's also this summit that you're having right now. It's very, very important to at least attend as much as you can, because it will help you in the long run, and you get to appreciate other key other people who are doing something similar in the industry that you're in. Um, so yeah, that's what I had for today. I know I had 2 hours, but I thought that at least I'd make it simple enough for people to at least get a sense of knowledge of what it is that they need to expect in this field of UI UX. So I think I'll give the floor for any questions that you guys have, and I'll be happy to answer them before I hand over the mic to Stella. I think since there are any more questions, I'll give back the mic to Stella. Hello. Hello, Stella. Um, so I think since we don't have any questions, we can end the session.